Hello, this is Al. Eric and I have taken on the challenge of designing a user interface for a navigation aid that would be optimized for the elder populace to utilize. With the growth and popularity of today's GPS navigation systems through either standalone units or smartphone devices, there is less of a market for traditional printed maps and highway atlases. More and more seniors are finding they have to turn towards this technology. Let's take an example of a test case of Mr. Vernon Barnes of Brattleboro, Vermont. He is 81, widowed, but has good motivation to travel these days. He has a son who is a colonel in the United States Air Force and is stationed as the base commander at Buckley Air Force Base in Colorado with his wife and Vernon's youngest grandchildren. Vernon also has an older son who is an architect in San Francisco with his wife and full-grown children. Vernon is a veteran of the Korean War, and he also has the opportunity to visit a few remaining Army buddies across the country. And lastly, since Vernon has been an amateur ham radio operator for decades, he has made some friends throughout his communiques over the years. With Vernon being in good health and still has a sharp mind, he enjoys driving across the country to see his friends and family. We need to consider how to design a navigation aid that is as useful as any existing product on the market today, but has the right interface in place to make the unit easy to use for seniors, and hopefully make it a desirable alternative than to trying to still purchase hard to find and more than likely possibly outdated traditional map products. So Eric, let's show everybody what we've come up with.
Hello everyone, this is Eric, and what I have here is the basic physical look to our navigation aid. As you can see, it kind of looks like a regular one, except we have some additional features. So to start, there's a large touchscreen display. So I know for me, the navigation aid, the GPS that I own, the screen's probably about 3 inches. We're talking about 6 inches with ours. We want it to be large, but not too bulky, so the navigation aid itself will be very thin. There's a help button in case of emergencies or general inquiry. Obviously you can see we'll have the title of our navigation aid in the middle. There's an on-off switch. There is a stop and go button. So at any given point, the user can press stop to end their navigation, or go to proceed between screens, or go as in start their trip. And then there's also these arrows on the left and the right. The ones on the left will act as a blinker on a car, will be flashing and blinking when a person is supposed to turn left, and then the same goes for the ones on the right. It will flash and blink and click when they are supposed to go right. There's also going to be a volume dial located externally, kind of like the on-off switch at the top. We haven't really nailed down exactly what that would be, but because we're working with elderly users, we would create something that would be more that they're familiar with. So some sort of volume control, like on a radio or maybe a television remote. Next we have just a basic screen that's saying, "Hello, Mr. Barnes." Vernon was introduced to you all by Al, and this is basically a greeting for the user when they first turn on the navigation aid. And here we have a couple, 3 different screens. This is the basic setup of a trip or when a user is about to navigate. So they're going to be presented with a question. What is your mode of navigation today? Please touch 1. And as you can see, there's a textual output of these directions as well. There will be an audio output. So everything you see on the screen will be spoken. So the user, if they select "I'm traveling by vehicle," they click that button and it will be confirmed by speech output. So they click it, and then you'll hear, "I am traveling by vehicle," or they click on "I'm hiking/walking," "I am hiking/walking." So this helps an aspect. In this aspect, it helps cover a range of user vision capability. Now, I would like to add real quick, remote access is available for a predetermined primary contact or caregiver. So all of these screens you'll see may be bypassed by a predetermined navigation route selected by this primary contact or caregiver. They can remote into the system and set all of this up for the user, so the user would not even have to worry about it. But I'll walk through these things just in the scenario where they would have to set it up for themselves. So as you can see, the next screen, you selected by traveling by vehicle. Traveling by vehicle, is that correct? Simple yes, no. If not, they go back. Yes, they continue. And then the last part is to specify the name of your destination. The QWERTY keyboard is something that the software had for this, for these storyboards. I'm not sure if we would really have that. Perhaps that's a discussion item that the class can think about. Working with elderly users, would a QWERTY keyboard be best, or would something like a telephone, the buttons on a telephone, be something that they're more used to or familiar with? But right now we have the QWERTY keyboard. And I just want to say a general thing. Everything on here is labeled, so you can see visually what each thing is going to do, and everything is paired with speech output as well. Now back to Vernon. He wants to go visit his son in Colorado. So he's going to step through the process of specifying his destination. First, he'll specify a name. Then he'll specify the street address, followed by the city and state. The zip code will be derived based on the information that he's provided. Now I would like to add here, you won't see a next or a back button. Right now we're thinking that the stop and go would act as next or back or cancel. So that's what we have right now. We chose to go name, street address, city, state, because an elderly user is more familiar with filling out an address like in the form of an envelope for a letter. So when you're doing that, you're going to say the person's name or the place, followed by address line 1, followed by address last line, which is the city, state, zip. Here we're actually deriving the zip for them behind the scenes to just make it one less step. And in the end, is Trevor Barnes located at 1513 Main Street, Aurora, Colorado 80021. The user specifies yes or no, and if yes, they continue on to begin their trip. If not, then a list of options would be presented based on the prior inputs, such as name, like do you want to change the name, street address, the city, state, so they can just determine where they want to go back. And one last thing to note here is to make this process quicker, we are going to cache these locations and destinations in memory. So next time when he goes and types in a name, Trevor Barnes, it's going to pull that location up automatically, and then he'll be able to confirm, yes, this is correct, or no, that's wrong. So he essentially skips the intermediary steps here of the street address and city, state, and goes right to the last part, asking if it's right or wrong. Our next scenario is Vernon likes to take scenic routes where traffic is slow and light. Here you see a screen which basically is asking for navigation preferences. and please select one of each. Of course, as always, those instructions question will be spoken to the user. And there's 3 categories here: traffic volume, high or low; traffic speed, high or low; route time, long or short. So as you can see here, low, low, and long is selected because he likes scenic routes where traffic is slow and light. And once again, these preferences may be predetermined by the primary contact or caregiver through the extended care network. I'll get into that a little bit more later. And these preferences will be stuck in memory for the life of the user or the system. They can be changed, but for the most part, they will be selected as is until they are changed. But the primary caregiver has control over this, and they can change it if they want to. Okay, this is probably one of the most important aspects to our navigation aid. Vernon, along his journey, he gets lost, and he needs immediate assistance because he doesn't know what to do. So as you can see here, the first screen is just the basic layout of our navigation aid. There's a placeholder for the actual raster chart display map. That is the system we'll be utilizing. And he can either select help, which is probably the more obvious choice, or press stop to end his trip, his route. In both cases, he can get to the same place. So help is a more direct way to get to the extended help network, where the user will be presented with a question. What do you need assistance with, Mr. Barnes? I'm lost. Please redirect me. I'm lost. Please notify my primary contact. I need emergency personnel. So some of these are pretty broad categories, but selecting either of the 3 buttons results in immediate action. So the first will yield a recalculation of the route. The second option yields an automatic call to the designated primary contact. And then the last option automatically dispatches and contacts the local emergency personnel, whether that's, fire, police, game warden, ambulance. And lastly, if he were to press a stop button, another question will be presented. You have stopped your trip. Have you reached your destination, or do you need assistance? So obviously there's 2 choices here. I've reached my destination, or I need assistance. I need assistance would bring you to this top screen where he specifies what he needs assistance with. So in many cases, an elderly user will end up needing assistance because confusion can ensue. They can get lost, they can be forgetful, and I believe this feature would be a great benefit for our core user. Okay, to wrap things up with our mock-ups here, after a great night of sleep in his hotel, Vernon wakes up and decides to go to the local IHOP, but makes a mistake. So he's going to turn on the navigation aid, go to the main menu where there's some different categories to choose from: restaurants, entertainment, lodging, shopping. Clicks on restaurants, goes to the next screen. The restaurants automatically populate. As you can see, IHOP is not on here. So, as the instructions say and is heard, please select or search for a restaurant. So he searches, but instead of putting IHOP, he puts IGOP. So, of course, that's going to lead to the bottom screen. I'm sorry, no restaurants called IGOP were found. Please retyping the destination, and I'll see if I can find it for you. He realizes, oh my goodness, I made a mistake. My poor old eyes and fingers can't do things right. So he changes it to IHOP. The search reruns, it finds it for him, and he selects it. So this is an example of how our system will handle error Typically, it will be handled with a message saying, "I'm sorry, blah, 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 please try again." So that will lead the user to the appropriate action and corrective action.
Eric had referenced a raster map as part of the design. For those of you that do not know, a raster is merely a scanned image, or in this case, it's a scan of the traditional paper map. Rasters certainly have disadvantages over current vector data, where the points, lines, and polygons that make up a vector map are drawn much like a video game and therefore represent the cartographic features. The advantages of the raster in this case is that it preserves the original look of the scanned conventional map. Since most seniors are used to these type of images, it puts a level of familiarity to the product. There will be more work to do to make the roads of the raster emulate the road line geometry of a vector data map to keep the helpful animation of the vehicle traveling remain on the road despite any GPS error, so that not to confuse the senior user viewing the GPS display while driving. Eric and I took extra consideration into coming up with ideas that make this product more usable to a senior user. We were looking over details of the interface that, whether either visual or audible, should be considered in the design with the respect and understanding to seniors who may not understand the technology and terminology that younger people are more accustomed to. First and foremost, we thought it was very important to use calm and simple language. Controlling the rate of speech at a reasonable pace and not the fast rate of communication that we sometimes hear from digital GPS units or our handheld cell phones. Inflection should be rather calming. Terms should not be confusing, such as recalculating. If an elderly person was to be using the device, suddenly it's recalculating, it could throw some confusion to them. They don't know exactly what that may mean for them, and meanwhile they're focusing on their driving. A good example would be something like this.
I'm sorry, but you have missed the turn. Give me a moment to find how to get there from here.
Also, we should avoid condescending statements. And although most statements aren't meant to be condescending, they certainly can be interpreted as such. Language whose intent may be easily understood by the average person, if not careful in the wording, can be considered condescending to an older person. When selecting options, instead of using the term avoid highway, the term avoid may be insinuating that at this point in your life you're scared of something. So you want to be mindful and respectful, and we'll use just different language, something like this.
Would you prefer to use highways or would you prefer to use main roads?
And lastly, technology conveniences should certainly be optional. Items that seem convenient to younger people may not be so for seniors. Consider having functions like autocorrect, for example, be optional, where it can be toggled on and off if desired, instead of remaining always an on option and therefore introducing some level of confusion if it's utilized. So lastly, there may have been some design considerations that we have not come up with when looking at this project. Eric and I certainly look forward to any feedback and constructive criticism that you may have for us, and we thank you for taking the time to listen and give us your attention, and I look forward to hearing to what you have to say about our input. Thank you.